We're here! We are in a post-FF7 R Part 3 reveal world. Final Fantasy VII Revelation is on the way, and boy oh boy does it feel good to no longer be calling it Part 3. Hot off the heels of the reveal at Summer Game Fest, Naoki Hamaguchi has been hitting the media circuit hard and dropping some juicy details on Revelation. Honestly, we might as well be calling him Hyperguchi at this point. In the interest of keeping this video relatively short, I'm not going to read out word-for-word tweets or quotes, and instead paraphrase them as much as possible. All the articles and tweets will be linked in the description, so you can click through there if you want to read them in full. So grab your knife and fork, pull up a seat at the table, and get ready to dig in, because Hamaguchi has been serving some absolute bangers to go with this mash. So what better way to begin than with the name itself, Revelation. Now, as a funny little tidbit, Hamaguchi did mention that Reunion wasn't even considered to be the name for Part 3 at any point, despite its online popularity. The name, Revelation, was chosen by Nomura and has a lot of implications behind it. Firstly, the revelation of Sephiroth's endgame and intent, the revelation of what awaits at the end of the journey, the revelation of Cloud, and the revelation of answers to questions fans have had across this journey. Gotta be honest, I really dig it. It's a very cool subtitle. One of the most exciting pieces of news for me is that Revelation will have about the same, if not more, playable content than Rebirth. Hamaguchi has even said that players won't be able to experience everything on the first playthrough. Now technically this was also true of Remake and Rebirth, the hard mode only combat simulator fights, the different dresses in Remake, the different side quest paths. Now in Rebirth there were the dates, and again the different side quest paths. But we'll look back to this later in the video, as there's another very interesting tidbit revealed that ties into this. Either way, I love the absolute feast of content we got in Rebirth. The more time I get to spend with these characters in this world, the better. For me at least. My only hope is that they've listened to some of the very valid criticisms about some of the pacing discrepancies and quirkiness in both Remake and Rebirth. In an interview with GameSpot, Hamaguchi dropped a few more details regarding Vincent and Cid's combat styles. Vincent can transform into the Galleon Beast at any point during combat. It's not just restricted to his limit break like it was during the OG. The comparison Hamaguchi made is that Vincent plays very similar to Yuffie, where Yuffie can throw and recall her shuriken, and doing so changes up her attacks from being ranged to melee and vice versa. The similar is true of Vincent with his Galleon Beast transformation, with the Galleon Beast form being more melee combat focused, and his regular form being more ranged focused. Cid, on the other hand, is very much considered an aerial combat specialist. Hamaguchi drew comparisons to Red 13, who's very much considered the grounded combat specialist, so if you team Red 13 up with Cid, they both cover ground and aerial combat respectively, with Red 13 focusing on tanking enemies on the ground, whereas Cid can deliver devastating aerial strikes as well as area effect abilities. Coming from the translation of the Den Famicom interview, Hamaguchi said that Zack will have even more scenes in Revelation and play a very important role in the story, as well as providing a different gaming experience to the player. Through Zack, the idea of multiple worlds and timelines will be explored, as well as the idea that the setting of this game is a little different to the OG. For now, I'm honestly taking this with a pinch of salt and not getting too excited over it. Zack's role in Rebirth was hyped up quite a lot in interviews before that game was released, when ultimately Zack's screen time amounted to about 50 minutes of a 100+ hour long game. So we'll have to wait and see how this one really plays out. It could just be a red herring, but hopefully it's not, as our boy Zack really deserves better. Let's hope he really gets to embrace his dreams this time. Eagle-eyed observers have noticed on the UI that there's a vacant 9th party member slot where our beloved flower girl would have been. Hamaguchi mentions that throughout the story, other characters will temporarily join the party as playable characters. Now I imagine some fans are hoping that Cisne might be one of those members, but get into that comment section and let me know who you'd like to see join the party temporarily. Also, as a side note, how cool is it that the new portrait pictures reflect one-to-one the original character sketches from the OG? Super cool, right? We've also learned a few new details about the FFVII system. Each character is going to have 4 different fits that can be unlocked. Now we've seen Warrior and Black Mage, and also some speculation that Summoner is one of them based off of Kate Sif's outfits, but more are going to be revealed soon. All the fits get unlocked at the same time, and each fit, drip, costume, outfit, I don't know, what are we going to call them, has its own individual skill tree through which skills are unlocked. These skills only have to be unlocked once though, so for example if you level the Black Mage job on Tifa and then decide to switch Kate Sif into a Black Mage, then Kate Sif will have access to any of the skills you unlocked as Tifa. So in that regard it's pretty similar to how Materia already works. If you switch the leveled Materia over from one character to another, the new character you've given it to will immediately have access to the skills of that leveled Materia. Though unlike Materia, each fit only has to be leveled once. This is pretty cool and should open up a lot of fun synergies when combined with the native movesets of each character. Also notice how all the fits we've seen so far have some sort of tech element to them, like on Tifa's skirt, Barrett's chest, Cloud's waist, etc. I'm going to put out a guess here and say that our boy Chadley is responsible for making these fits. One would hope that all that combat intel we've been feeding him for the past 2 games has amounted in something useful. Aside from fits themselves, we're also going to be getting character skins. This is essentially like Glamour from Final Fantasy XIV, or Transmog from WoW if you're that way inclined, which allows us to give the cast the look we want to give them without affecting their stats and loadout. So for example, if you want Cloud to be a Black Mage, but keep its iconic soldier appearance, then you can. Pretty awesome. It's something a lot of fans have been clamouring for since Remake, so it's great to see this finally being implemented in Part 3. So on the topic of minigames, Hamaguchi mentioned that the team did hear the feedback about the quantity of minigames in Rebirth, but he's also said that Revelation won't have less minigames. Instead, what they've done is reduce the amount of character growth and character power that is tied to the minigames, making them a lot more optional and something that players can engage with at their own pace. They're also going to be adding difficulty options to the minigames, along with an option to skip them entirely. He also mentioned that while character growth might not be tied to minigames anymore, customization options like skins and appearances will be. So for those who still want to engage with the minigames, there's still going to be some fun rewards that can be unlocked through them. Now for me, I think this is a very good solution. Personally, I love the amount of minigames in Rebirth, though I will admit some of them did get quite frustrating after a while, especially when going for those crafted items, as well as the decoration for Johnny's hotel. So making them more optional and tying fun things like cosmetics to them makes a lot of sense, and allowing people that don't want to engage with them the means to just skip them entirely seems like a reasonable compromise. Oh, and yes, snowboarding will of course be coming to the Gold Saucer. Sticking to the subject of minigames though, by far the most popular minigame in Rebirth was Queensblood. In an interview with Game Informer, Hamaguchi commented that the popularity and warm reception to Queensblood actually surprised the team. So Queensblood will be returning in Revelation, along with some adjustments and changes, the extent of which he didn't really go into, but he did actually tease us that like in Rebirth, Queensblood will have its own storyline associated with it. However, this time around we'll be experiencing the Queensblood story through Naoki. 2 legs, nothing to it. I'm super excited for this. I really love Queensblood as a minigame and sunk a lot of hours into it, re-challenging NPCs and doing the challenges of the Gold Saucer. The Affinity System isn't going to be carried over from Rebirth and will be handled slightly differently in Revelation. Instead of focusing on Cloud's individual relationships with each character, in Revelation the team wanted to focus on the characters' relationships with each other, as well as giving players a choice of which characters they wanted to fully explore. Now honestly, this is not too surprising. The choices from War Market in Remake didn't really carry over into Rebirth, so I'm not particularly surprised that our choices in Rebirth are going to carry over into Revelation. There's also an interesting implication to all of this that we'll touch on towards the end of the video. Now, Hamaguchi has commented in a number of interviews that they considered making the weapon battles something more akin to a minigame, but ultimately they felt that players had spent so long with the cast of characters and grown attached to them over the course of the 3 games that it made more sense to keep these weapon battles part of the core battle system, but add some unique mechanics or gadgets for each encounter. Now, I really like the sound of this approach. I was wondering if they go down a more cinematic spectacle type style, similar to what we saw in Final Fantasies 15 and 16, but combining the core battle system with a unique mechanic for each weapon could work really well. We'll have to wait and see, of course, but the battle content has been one of the Re-Trilogy's strongest points, so I'm confident they're going to deliver here. Firstly, can I just say how freaking cool is it that Hamaguchi waltzes off stage at Summer Game Fest, then immediately gets on the phone to Maximilian Dude and is like, "Brother, we need to talk." And a few hours later he's doing an interview live on Max's stream. Honestly, just incredible. So in this interview we learned that there won't be a Chocobo breeding system in Revelation, and instead we'll be helping Pico, our feathered friends from the grasslands in Rebirth, learn the abilities of the other Chocobos, which in turn will allow us to revisit areas and access spots that were previously inaccessible. Admittedly, I'm a little bit sad that there's not going to be a Chocobo breeding system. The core concept of helping Pico level up and learn the abilities of the other Chocobos, thus giving us a reason to go back to previously explored areas, is something that was on my wish list, and to be honest, I'm actually pretty happy with that. So overall, good news. I'm looking forward to adventuring more with Pico. The world itself is probably one of the biggest topics that the post-SGF interviews have expanded upon. It looks like we're taking flight in the Highwind very early into the game, and once obtained, we can explore pretty much the entire world. The developers want to allow players the freedom to decide where to go, rather than following a strict linear path. That being said though, there will be locations that can be visited immediately, but will be roamed by enemies that are far too powerful to defeat early on. Although, you just know that there's someone out there hearing this and is already like, challenge accepted. We will of course also be able to revisit areas from Rebirth, though with the emergence of the weapons, these locations won't be exactly as we remember them due to seismic shifts and other damage caused by the weapons. In the Den Famnico interview, it was also revealed that Midgar itself will be a fully explorable area, and that we may also run into characters there related to Deep Ground, many of whom have been suspiciously absent since the end of episode intermission. In the same interview, it was also confirmed that we will be visiting Rocket Town, but at a much later point in the story. Likewise, Wutai will be far larger in scope than it was in the OG, and far more integral to the story. It's also been revealed in the Automaton interview that Bone Village won't be present as one of the few locations from the OG that won't be in Revelation. That being said, the underwater sections will be returning, although Hamaguchi didn't want to reveal too much about what it will involve, though the obvious answer here is Emerald Weapon. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe there'll be more to do underwater. As they always say, please look forward to it. And lastly, it has sadly been confirmed that there won't be a day-night cycle in the game. Much like Remake and Rebirth, the passage of time and the time of day is tied to the events of the main story. Now, on the topic of Knights of the Round, Hamaguchi is pretty tight-lipped in general, but he did confirm that Knights of the Round will be in Revelation and will be worthy of its name. We'll have to fight the Knights of the Round to get the summon, although whether or not this is going to just be yet another chatty combat simulator or something more integral to the story remains to be seen. Now, understandably, Hamaguchi is remaining pretty tight-lipped on the story front. However, he has said that the team considers Revelation to be the definitive conclusion of the Final Fantasy VII Remake series, and it will have one singular definitive ending. However, the path in which players get to that ending will differ from player to player and playthrough to playthrough, with player choices potentially affecting progression, unlocking or locking additional story content, and affecting parts of how the sub-narrative unfolds. The team really wanted to create a feeling of choices having meaningful consequences. So depending on what choice a player makes, there will be certain storylines and events that will no longer happen in that playthrough, and this can also impact what side stories are or aren't available, and also which characters players can dive deeper with, and maybe even ultimately impact what strategic options are available to the player. But again, irrespective of the path taken, the progression of the main scenario itself and the ending will always be the same. Now, this sounds all very intriguing and heavily implies that Revelation is going to have a lot of replay value. I do wonder if they'll take a similar approach to Remake and Rebirth, with a chapter select becoming available upon completion, allowing players to specifically set which events they want to unfold on the next playthrough, or if the game will need to be replayed fully and specific choices made to unlock different events. We'll have to wait and see there. Hamaguchi did also add that the team have heard the requests from fans wanting to explore stories with other characters and other side stories within the Final Fantasy VII universe, but he stresses that Revelation itself and delivering a satisfying overall conclusion to the remake series is the main focus of the team right now. Now, this is pretty much a textbook non-committal answer that's leaving the door open, quote unquote, just in case, without outright committing to anything in the future. While personally I'd love to see even more content set in the 7 universe, what I'd really love to see is what the 7 remake team could accomplish given the free reign, build their own project from the ground up. Maybe Final Fantasy XVII or Final Fantasy XVIII. So there you have it. Well, at least for now, it seems that every day more and more interviews are coming out with juicy new tidbits of information. So if anything interesting or exciting does come up, I'll be sure to make a video on it. So subscribe if you'd like to hear more. But what do you think of all the info drops so far? Anything you're particularly hyped about? Or is there stuff that makes you uncertain? Get into those comments and let me know and let's have a discussion. And with that, I'm off to fangirl over the trailer again. So, see you in the next video. Okay, bye!